Hi, YouTube family. It's me. It's Lois Johnson. I am, of course, as you may already know, that 34-year-old self-encouragement speaker who happens to sometimes feel trapped inside the body of a 54-year-old employment recruiter. I just wanted to reach out to you today, and I'm hoping again that this is something that's going to be very useful. I think that it will be. This is the result of, number one, a video I created and uploaded last week around forgiveness. And then secondly, it has to do with my mastermind partner and I having a conversation this morning surrounding forgiveness and what that might look like if, in fact, a certain group of people were able to forgive another group of people. So let me just share a little bit of a backstory. For those of you who don't already know, I have victored. I'm continuing to challenge myself to continue the work because I think that it is in fact ongoing to victor further and forgive further if that's humanly possible. My mother. And the reason I say that is because I have victored over child abuse and sexual assault. And I, for so many years, was angry and bitter and just very disappointed with my mom. And it had me in a place of paralysis where I just couldn't, I don't know, I couldn't get past that thing. And I had friends in my circle who were cognizant enough to say to me that forgiveness is something that is not for the other individual. Forgiveness is actually created for you. And at the time, I did not want to accept that. I just felt like what they were saying to me is that my feelings weren't valid. The fact that I was hurt and I felt that I was not protected and defended as a child had no validity and that I should just get over it. Well, despite their many attempts, I don't know that it sunk in until I made a conscious decision that I no longer wanted to be bitter. I no longer wanted to be angry. I'm at a place in my life where I want my mother and me to spend as much valuable quality time together as humanly possible. I want to create a different family dynamic. I'm not interested in just being disappointed and hurt and damaged. And once I made the conscious decision that I no longer wanted to feel those emotions is when I was able to really and truly develop and cultivate, quite frankly, and influence her in a lot of positive ways. And it's just been amazing to watch us both transition into a place where we have a better relationship now at this stage in our lives than we've had previously. So I said all of that to say that when I thought about how challenging that was for me as an individual, yet I was able to make the transition and now we're enjoying a beautiful relationship, I couldn't help but to think, what would that look like if we, African Americans, might be able to exercise forgiveness towards those who we believe have wronged us in any shape, form, or fashion, no matter how large or how small, any levels of racial inharmony or intolerance or racism. If in fact, forgive me, I am using selfie stick today, so it is a little bit wobbly, but I feel like the content is definitely something that is valuable. So back to my original point, what would that look like if I experienced that level of freedom, liberty? If I experienced that level of empowerment, self-empowerment, as a result of forgiving my mom, then how would that look if we collectively as a group decided, okay, it happened. Slavery happened. Racism happened. Jim Crow happened. And racism and intolerance and inharmonious relationships are still happening. But what if? Just what if? And I'm first to admit that I have a whole lot more questions than I'll ever have answers. But what if we decided, let's just forgive it and let's empower ourselves? And if there are 24 hours in a day, what if we, just in a perfect world, if we didn't have to sleep, what if we devoted, let's say, maybe 20 hours of each 24-hour period to working on ourselves, and then took the remaining 4 hours to challenge, those intolerances and inequalities? What would that look like? how would that improve our lives and our communities collectively? I don't know. I'm just saying. Like I said, I have a whole lot more questions than I ever will claim to have answers. But I thought that this was something that might warrant a video and some thought. It just might be worth us just really considering that. And what I'll add to that is, what I find very interesting is, as much as I attend or have attended Black churches, I don't attend church as much anymore because it's filled with church people. I would love church if it didn't have a bunch of church people. And what I mean by that is the hypocrisy. I can no longer accept a lot of the hypocrisy. This is not everybody, but it's enough to discourage me from wanting to be a part of that right at this particular point in my life. I'm looking for real relationship with my deity. I want real relationship. So what that looks like for me is I would much rather be Christ-like than to call myself Christian. And I'd like to be surrounded by people who, if in fact they do proclaim themselves to be Christians, that they understand that that basically translates to love and forgiveness and generosity and tolerance and acceptance and inclusion and sensitivity and compassion. Yeah, and just plain common courtesy. You know what I mean? So anyway, I digress. I just really would want us to collectively as a people get to a place where we take our power and we move in the direction of putting 90% of our focus on changing our communities and changing things that are worth 90% of our energy. I'll say that. And changing and focusing, I should say, on those things that we have more control over. And I still believe that we have a whole lot more control over ourselves and changing within than we ever would externally. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say today about forgiveness. And again, I hope that I have an opportunity to create more video content. I am making every effort to make sure that the content is in fact of some use and is valuable, and not just creating videos just for the sake of creating videos. Although I have done that. I did that because I needed to maintain a sense of integrity with myself, and I needed to create videos simply because I said that I would. But that's not what this is about today. Today, I really want to challenge us as a community to think about what forgiveness looks like. And the way in which I brought the church into it is, I thought that it was interesting, or I still think it's interesting, that in church I've often heard it preached forgiveness, but it's always been forgiveness on an individual level, not necessarily on a collective level. What would happen if our ministers started to preach about forgiveness on a collective level and